Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Here we are going to present our material about death and funeral. But before we start our presentation, let me introduce our members. First is Novita Nurul Aziza, second is Lina Sisni Astuti, the third is Zaini Aziza, and fourth is Firis Ekawinahyu. And the first material is about cross-cultural death. Death is an inevitable event that we will all deal with at some point in our lives. Well, it certainly is not easy. Cultures around the world have developed their own rituals and traditions to celebrate and deal with the reality of death. And the next is different traditions or ways of the process of death. Point A, celebration of death in Latin America. With most of the Latin American population identifying as Catholic, most countries there have similar approaches to burying and commemorating their loved ones. Generally, a funeral is composed of the following activities: wake, usually held at the house of a direct relative. Family members and friends accompany the direct relatives in their mourning, and the body of the deceased is usually present inside its coffin. Mass held at a Catholic church or designated place. Family and friends attend a mass in honor of the soul of their loved one. Burial, a priest places the grave and family members and friends may say their eulogies before the burial takes place. Point B, European rituals. In Poland and Ireland. In Poland, the doors and windows of the house of the deceased are kept open because it's believed that the souls need a path to go to the spiritual world. And the next is Ireland. In Ireland, people open the windows for a period of 2 hours. They believe that souls need a path to live. If someone blocks the way for any reason, they will suffer from bad luck. And the next is Muslim rituals for the celebration of death. In the Islamic holy book, burials should take place as soon as possible and cremation should be avoided. Cremation are strictly prohibited among conservative groups. After the coffin is buried facing the Mecca, death and mourning rituals continue for several days and include specific rituals according to the day. And the next is third day, a memorial service takes place. Seventh day, people pay visits to the grave and bring food for the poor. 40th day, mourners transition from wearing black to regular clothing and place the headstone at the cemetery. And the next material will be presented by Lina Sisni Astuti.
Next, about African rituals for the dead. The celebration of death in African countries is not merely a family affair, but an important sociocultural event. This is a unique characteristic of the continent as compared to others across the world, where usually only family members and a few friends attend the funerals. African families go to great lengths to organize funeral, and some even incur debt to afford to host the event. The arrangement for a funeral typically include buying new clothes, custom-made coffins, offering food for guests, hiring singers, and even hiring coffin dancers. These expenses often take a toll on families to the extent that economists have raised their voice of concern over this issue as well. So, uh, we we get in a Ghana, fantasy coffins are custom made resembling something meaningful for the deceased. For instance, it's usual to find coffins with animal or airplane shapes. In Nigeria, people print posters to announce the death of a loved one and even offer animal sacrifice. Next is about North Asian customs to commemorate the dead. In North Asian countries, rituals are inspired by Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. Across different countries, communities recognize the significance of death in their rituals. Even in non-religious communities, families put in effort to provide a dignified farewell for their loved ones. Asian countries also have a strong culture of respect for the elderly, and this is seen in their rituals. So in China, Qingming is the biggest Remembrance Day for the thesis known as the Town Sweeping Day. The Chinese pay their respect to their loved one by taking care of their graves, cleaning their tombs, cutting weeds, and adding fresh soil. As this ancient tradition evolved with current times, many people bring offerings such as paper that symbolize money. Families also fly kites with lanterns that represent good fortune. And in South Korea, Korea Koreans remember their ancestors in their Chuseok festival. This holiday is considered the biggest one in the country, is regarded as the Korean version of Thanksgiving. Celebrates on August 15 of the lunar calendar, Koreans believe that their ancestors harvested to the crops of fruit and grains during this time. Food is a key component of this ritual. The Chuseok menu is full of classic Korean dishes such as japchae, bulgogi, and songpyeon, a special rice cake. On the day of Chuseok, families wake up early in the morning to prepare the table for their ancestors. They pay respect by bowing toward the table and wait for their ancestor to accept their gift. These rituals known as cherry. After the ritual, they proceed to eat, and part of the Chuseok tradition requires family to pay a visit to their ancestor tomb as well. Okay, next material will be presented by Zaini Aziza.
Okay, the next is Japan. The Japanese celebrate the Obon festival to commemorate the dead. This tradition is believed to have originated around 500 years ago under Buddhist influence. The Japanese believe that their ancestors return to visit during Obon, so they place lanterns around the city, rivers, and lakes to guide them back to their origins. And then Australian celebration of death. Australian population declares to have no religion, but the main religions practiced in the country are Christianity and Catholicism. Because of this, Australian rituals for death and funerals are similar to that of other Western. Most people dress in black attire, and it is common to have personalized funerals. Funerals
with special music and memorials in unique locations are also popular. And then funeral. The funeral usually includes a ritual through which the corpse receives a final disposition. The word funeral comes from the Latin funus, which had a variety of meanings, including the corpse and funerary rites themselves. Funerary art is art product in connection with burials, including many kinds of tombs and objects specially made for burial, like flower with a corpse. Okay, funeral customs and death-related rituals. The first is Buddhist belief and practice. Buddhists place great importance on the state of mind at the moment of death, one or 2 or 3 days after death. The body is either buried or cremated. If a cremation takes place, it is traditional for a nephew of the deceased to press the button that round the certain on the coffin and consign into the furnace. For the example, wear plain with clothes, abstain from wearing jewelry, eat simple food, and include in entertainment. And Christian belief and practice. Christian believe in one God who has revealed himself as the Father. After that, the body of the dead person may be moved to the undertaker's chapel of rest. The word chapel does not necessarily indicate a place of worship, so in the case of belief that the funeral director often arranged candles around the coffin and display a cross. Okay, the next material will be presented by Phyllis Eka.
Okay, the next funeral customs and death related rituals is Hindu cremations, customs, and rites. So, after death, the body is washed and dressed, preferably in new clothes. For married women are clothed in a pink or red sari and adorned with jewelry. Kumkum red powder is placed in the parting of the hair and a red spot or tilak is applied on the forehead. And Hindus believe in reincarnation and that at death the soul sheds its body and pass on another body. And in India, the body is usually cremated within 24 hours of death. It is wrapped in a cloth and placed in a coffin, and the coffin is covered in flowers. By traditions, the eldest son should set the funeral pyre alight or press the button if a crematorium is used. And the eldest son and other close male relatives have their heads shaved as a sign of bereavement and cleansing. And for the friends and relatives, keep the bereaved company, share grief and offer support. And on the 11th or 13th day, all will gather to offer a blessing to deceased in order to show gratitude for acts of kindness that they received during his or her lifetime, and the memory is preserved in the family's daily. Okay, the next is Jewish funeral customs and beliefs about death. So, Jews believe in one God and that there is only one life to be lived. After death, the body is one God and that there is only one life to be lived. After death, the body is washed, dressed in a white shirt, and placed in a coffin. Whenever possible, burial should take place within 24 hours. No flowers or music are provided, ensuring that there is no discrimination between rich and poor. Mourners ritually cut a slit in their outer clothes as a sign of grief. There are 7 days of intensive mourning during which close relatives say prayers throughout the day and neighbors and friends visit to offer condolence and help. For the following 11 months, the Kaddish is said every day. Every year of the anniversary of the death, the family say the Kaddish and burn a candle for 24 hours. Okay, the next one is Muslim burial customs and rites. When death is imminent, the person is asked to declare their faith by repeating the simple formula God is one and Muhammad is his prophet. So, Muslims believe that there is one God, Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of God. There is only one life to be lived, and there will be a day of judgment when each soul is judged according to their deeds on earth. Extravagant expressions of grief are against the will of Allah. Mourning is demonstrated by reading from the Quran, and burial should take place before noon and with the minimum of delay. The body washed and wrapped in a simple white cotton sheet or shroud. All Muslims are dressed alike to symbolize their equality before God, and the body is buried with the head towards Makkah. And on the first day after the burial, prayers are said at home of the deceased, and after the 8 celebrations, visits are made to the cemetery to say prayers at the family grave. This is a reminder that even in the middle of happy celebrations, life is temporary, and that is important to live correctly to ensure eternal life with Allah. The next is funeral and burial rituals from around the world. The first one is Antyesti India. This Hindu practice literally translates to last sacrifice, depending on the caste, gender, and age of the deceased. They are symbolically returned to the elements of creation in a specific ritual. It is common that a funeral fire is used in at least one part of this practice. The second one is burial beds, South Korea. Since there is such a limited space for burial in South Korea, they have to get creative with the bodies of the deceased. In this practice, the body is cremated and pressed into jewelry-like beds. They are often colorful and kept in an urn or bottle. The third one is funeral stripes, China, Taiwan. Having a well-attended funeral is a subject of great concern in Taiwan. To attract a crowd, some families are some families hire strippers, host dance, and set up elaborate feasts to entice people to attend. And the fourth one is hanging coffins, China, the Philippines. Hidden high up along mountain sides and in difficult to reach place, the people of Sagada in the Philippines believed that the closer a coffin was to the sky, and the closer the deceased was to heaven. The Philippines also has a Dingwayan funeral where people dress the dead in their finest clothes, sit them in a chair, and give them a smoke. There the dead sit smoking for several weeks. And the fifth is Jade Burial Suite, Han Dynasty, China. Royal members of the Han Dynasty were buried in a ceremonial suite of jade. The jade was cut into square, rectangular, and triangular shapes and threaded with wire to cover the entire body like a suit of armor. They were extremely expensive and took years to complete. The next is Death&Funeral, New Orleans. So, this procession leads the deceased from the funeral home or church to the grave, playing kirkis and sad music all the way. Afterwards, the band plays merrier music at a post-funeral party where the life of the deceased is celebrated. The next is Kiribati School Burial, the Republic of Kiribati in the Central Pacific. A few months after burial, the body is exhumed and the skull is taken. The family of the deceased will polish, oil, and preserve and display the skull in their homes. Sometimes offerings of foods and tobacco are made to it. The next is Memento Mori, Victorian England. The Victorian era saw a particular fascination with death and mourning, so post-mortem photographs were common and spirit photos were popular and created using a double exposure that created a ghostly image of the deceased next to the solid image of the mourning. The next is Sky Burial Tibet. In most forms of Buddhism, bodies are meant to be cremated or given over to animals in an act of charity, since there is little wood for burning bodies in Tibet. And the next is Totten Pass, ancient Greece, Egypt, northeastern Africa. In deities of ancient cults to Orpheus and Dionysus or members of certain Egyptian or Semitic religions would carry passport of the dead. These tables made of metal or stone would have a picture of the deceased on one side and instructions for navigating the afterlife on the other. Okay, that's all from our group. Hopefully you can get the benefit from our presentations. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.